Oh, hi. Sorry, I didn't see you there. Wait, it's what time? I'm sorry, I didn't even realize. I lost track of time because I have just been inside all day. Welcome to the Inside All Day podcast. My name is Chris, joined as always by my lovely wife, Nadia.
Hello.
And we're excited to have you here today for our very first episode. Nadia, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. I'm really excited to talk about some of my favorite things going on right now in the pop culture world, especially Stranger Things. That was really
Excellent.
Cool. 5 stars for me, but no spoilers, right? No spoilers until we get
Yet.
to that segment of it. I'm also really excited to have people join us on this new exciting ride we've decided to put together.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really good time. The internet, notorious for being nice to new people.
Just be nice, people.
I am sure they'll be on their best behavior. That being said, Nadia, I'm glad to hear it sounds like we're both equally excited for this. Dear listener, how are you doing today? Because I got to tell you, you look fantastic. You've clearly lost some weight. You've been working out? No? It's not even doing anything different with the diet? Well, you're doing something that's working because you look fantastic right now. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I'm glad you're here for us today. We definitely got those big stories, The Boys, Umbrella Academy, and Stranger Things to talk about. But first, the news.
It is not. I resent that. Slander is spoken. In print, it's libel.
All right, Chris, we're going to get into some news in pop culture. One thing I want to mention before we dive into recent news, but as of recording today, did you know Men in Black was released 25 years ago? We old.
For those of you that saw that in theaters, you're feeling very old right now, and I'm right there with you.
Yeah, but I loved Men in Black when I went to go see it. To me, it's one of those movies that stick with you over time.
And it holds up over time, too.
Oh, yeah. Tons of nostalgia. Will Smith at his peak for me. Mm-hmm. Tommy Lee Jones just with that stark deadpan.
Flat. I loved it.
The written so well, the humor behind it, sci-fi too as well. A great way to introduce sci-fi to your kids, I think, too.
Absolutely. The puppetry, the 3D, the makeup effects, I mean, at the time was all the best of the best of the best. And and at the time it looked at, and I think it's one of those reasons why it just helps it hold up.
Yes. To me, it's one of those movies that you can, if you ever have kids or something, you can introduce them to. Because to me, my dad made sure I saw Indiana Jones. He made sure I saw Star Wars. If we ever have kids, I can see the same thing. Indiana Jones, Star Wars, Men in Black. My dad also made sure I watched The Exorcist.
Lord of the Rings extended trilogy.
That's true.
You're welcome, children.
Yeah. Horror films too. Again, thanks, Dad. Way too young for them, but I do appreciate the attempt. The Goonies too as well. But, well, then again, the Goonies didn't hit with you. I saw it as a kid. There's nostalgia for me. For you, not so much.
I somehow managed to miss the Goonies when I was a child. And I will tell you that I have tried to go back as an adult and watch it, knowing this would have been something I would have loved. And for me, I just can't do it. But Men in Black, yeah, just fantastic, from movie to sequel to cartoons and action figures.
Oh, right, the cartoons.
Yeah, right.
I forgot about those.
They just had a blast doing as much as they could with Men in Black. And, especially in that first one was just lightning in a bottle.
That's true. The last one wasn't that great, though, I would say. Womp womp. Not that great, but it's okay.
Little Archer reference. Como se dice?
Womp womp. And then in other news, now more current news, Sony's Marvel is moving forward with Madam Web, and Emma Roberts is now on board for the movie too as well. So they're really kind of pushing through with that. I absolutely love Sony and MCU team-ups because I liked John Watts' Spider-Man trilogy. No Way Home, Homecoming, No Way Home, Homecoming. What was the second one? Third one was No Way Home.
Far From Home.
Far From Home. Thank you. Far From Home. That's why I have you here. You're definitely more adverse with Spider-Verse, would you say?
Adverse?
or
Adept?
adept.
That's the word we wanted.
Basically, you're smarter
like-
about it.
I like the Spider-Verse. I'm not anti-Spider-Verse.
That's true.
I'm not averse to the verse.
You read, it's one of your favorite comic book series, I would say,
grew up
right?
like a lot of young men my age grew up loving Spider-Man, and when the whole
Don't throw out the girls because I liked Spider-Man too.
fair enough.
There's that Spider-Man cartoon.
For those of you
Awakened a lot of things.
Peter Parker.
But yeah.
I don't even know where to go from that. That completely derailed me.
But yes, Spider-Man. We both grew up with Spider-Man, right? We both loved the cartoon. You definitely read comics way more than I did. I recently have gotten into the comics, I would say. Definitely love Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, right? That was a big deal for both of us. Again, aging us.
I loved Andrew Garfield's Amazing Spider-Man before it was cool.
That's true. I was a little 50-50 on it after seeing it. That he definitely deserves a last film to finish the trilogy.
Please.
But I would say now rewatching it, I can appreciate it better. The attempt of it, because originally I really didn't think he would be a Peter Parker.
But you know what? We're the whole point is to say we love Spider-Man.
That's true.
This is a Spider-Man household.
But what do you think of Madam Web?
Out of all
the characters,
potential characters they could have picked, I don't know how they landed on Madam Web. I can make a few educated guesses, but it will be interesting to see what they do with this. I liked Venom enough. It's hard to not compare superhero movies to Avengers films these days. And I will say, to me, Venom was a little bit more of a turn your brain off. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I enjoyed them. I just don't know what they're going to do with Madam Web, but it'll be interesting.
I hope it's definitely a Sony Marvel team up, because Sony by themselves, I'm with you. I liked Venom. Venom 2.
It's going to be a Sony solo.
Venom 2 would have been better if it was R-rated. Not gonna lie, Venom in general would have been better R-rated. I mean, you've always mentioned that Agent Venom is your favorite.
Yeah, well,
out of all of them.
But you also got to remember
But Eddie Brock is always
less people
a
who
classic.
can see it. If you make it an R-rated, that means you're going to lose the kids for the superhero. Then you can't sell the toys.
I would counter you with the Daredevil series on Netflix, though.
Daredevil has never been for children.
That's true. Daredevil is one of my favorite Marvel anti-hero, superhero, whatever you want to call him. He's been my favorite.
Masked up vigilante.
Yes, and I would counter that maybe Venom would be better off if they can't get that R rating as a streaming service TV series. I would love to see them take Agent Venom in that route.
No, you're just saying that because you know I love Agent Venom.
I know you love Agent Venom, but it's a really good concept.
Listen, there's nothing wrong with Eddie Brock. I just like what they did with Agent Venom. I think it was a really cool concept. And yeah, I think I would love to see an Agent Venom series. Would be awesome. I don't think Agent Venom could really do a movie.
Yeah.
But a series, yes.
Yeah, that's true. And in other news, since we're talking about the boys on this episode, I just want to bring up, and we've both talked about this, about Anthony Starr, the fan casting him as Wolverine. And we've both seen, and we'll post the artwork we're talking about on our Instagram so everyone could see what we're talking about at this time.
Where we're getting these ideas from.
And though I believe Marvel's in talk with someone else for Wolverine.
Well, there's been some fan casting of, I'm going to mess his name up, Taron Egerton.
Yes. Well, I think the news came out this week that he was in talks potentially about playing.
It came out. He definitely talked to Marvel, is what he said, but they did not state what they spoke of. But he has been fan cast into oblivion as Wolverine.
But I can't see him living up to Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. You know what?
Hugh Jackman? Yes.
Nobody should live up to anybody, right? They're going to take their own approach to the character. And they're probably going to want a younger guy so they can do multiple movies, multiple things with them, right? So, just like they did with a couple of the original Avengers. Granted, I know a couple of them were older. Robert Downey, definitely, and stuff.
I totally agree with you, but no one will ever replace Robert Downey as Iron Man.
That is true.
That is one you cannot live up to.
Unless, well, I don't want to spoil anything we're going to be talking about in Stranger Things, but there's a certain character in Stranger Things that to me looks identical to a young Robert Downey. But yes, I agree with you. Fan casting of him, I think would be cool. I love Anthony Starr. I think he's phenomenal. I love what he's done with Homelander. He's just elevated that character to a whole different ballpark. And I think with him elevating that, it's elevated the boys in general overall.
Oh, for sure.
And I think it's also helped his castmates too to develop their characters even more so too.
And not that Anthony Starr is old, but he is older than someone I think they would want to cast for Wolverine at this point.
Yeah.
Get more movies out of that individual. But especially I feel like he's shown with Homelander, he has the chops to bring that classic standard Wolverine dude, and I would 100% be there for it.
I think we should definitely do an episode about our own fan casting.
Ooh, fan casting.
Because with Wolverine, the last thing I want to note is they're probably going to want a younger guy, but they're also probably going to be looking for somebody who's a little bit more well-known, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tom Holland kind of came out of left field for the US, but he's been acting since he was a tiny little child. Like, children are tiny, but you get what I mean.
No, I don't. I need you to keep explaining.
No, that's as far as I'm going to go with that. And one thing I also want to bring up today in our news segment is that Top Gun's Maverick has passed 1 billion worldwide box offices. That's phenomenal for a sequel from a movie from 1986 to make it. Because if you look at all this other IP happening in Hollywood's that is rehashing stuff, like, breaks my heart, Jurassic Park, that's something big to me.
Near and dear.
For them to hit 1 billion, probably even more by the time and no controversy around the sets. No, I mean, Tom Cruise is a weirdo, right? We all know this. Tom Cruise is a weirdo.
He's an action junkie.
Maybe that's what makes him such a great actor, right? For him to be a weirdo. I haven't seen a lot of Tom Cruise since the older movies in the 80s and 90s. And I never saw Top Gun growing up. I did listen to the soundtrack, but I never watched the movie. So we recently watched the first one because we plan on going to go see Maverick when we have time. And I would have to say my takeaway from it is Maverick's the villain. Iceman's the hero. You can...
Playing by the rules. Iceman. Making everybody spill their coffee. Maverick.
Right? That would piss me off so much. But
I mean, yes, would it really have felt out of place if there was a scene where, Maverick was just walking down a hallway slapping coffees out of people's hands?
And for the longest, knowing just a little bit going in, I've never had seen it, didn't know any spoilers about it, didn't know how the story takes. For the longest, it's always been, according to what I've seen, that Maverick is the hero, right, of this. That he's the Top Gun pilot, but
he's supposed to be the wild card.
The wild card.
He breaks the rules, but you just gotta.
But he's got heart. And then watching this the whole time, I'm looking over at you. I'm like, he's an asshole. He's the villain.
Goose has heart.
Goose has real heart.
Had.
Womp, womp, womp. But and then everybody's like, Iceman's the villain. Iceman's not the villain. Poor Val Kilmer.
He's the antagonist.
I wouldn't even say he's the antagonist. He's like, we want to make sure everybody's safe. We want to make sure everybody's following the rules. And Maverick's like, nah. I go, at the beat of my own drum. Right?
Permission to buzz the tower.
Exactly. And then the last bit of news I want to touch base with you, because we both love Disney and we grew up Disney kids, Disney Channel, Disney movies. Hocus Pocus 2 trailer dropped.
How do you feel about that? I know Halloween's a favorite for you. I know that's a particular favorite.
Yes, I love Halloween. Halloween is a big deal to me. I hope as our listeners get to know me, they'll know that. Just so you know, I don't look like I love Halloween, but I love Halloween. All right. And with Hocus Pocus, and just something I want to say, controversy on this.
Controversial.
Thank you, controversial. I like Beetlejuice better than Hocus Pocus as a repeat Halloween movie to watch. I still have a place in my heart for Hocus Pocus. For the longest, I've always tried to get my other two sisters and I to dress up as the three witches. It'll probably never happen as we are adults now, but it is a dream of mine for the three of us too. And seeing the trailer, I looked at you and I was a little disappointed in it, but you pointed out a great thing.
It's not for you.
It's not written for me.
It's written for the new kids.
The new generation of
And
kids.
in fairness, you were number one. A couple things I want to throw out there real quick. You were never going to be able to do the Halloween costumes with your sisters because you guys keep fighting over who's whose. But that'll be easier now because the new Hocus Pocus shows us everyone ages.
Yes.
And age is catching up with some of the characters. Now, with that said, you said controversial statement. I like Hocus Pocus more, or I like Beetlejuice more than Hocus Pocus. That's not a controversial statement. Controversial statement would be me saying, I don't understand why everyone goes absolutely batty for Beetlejuice. I don't get it. It's never really rung with me. It doesn't do it. That's a controversial statement.
That's true. I was a Tim Burton kid, though. Loved everything. I still do. Love everything Tim Burton. Big Fish, I think, is one of the best films
Big Fish
ever.
is amazing.
I say films instead of movies. I think it's just a whole different level. I went to the Tim Burton exhibit in LA a couple years back. Loved it. So I grew up with those. I was a weird kid, so I liked that kind of stuff. That's why I like Beetlejuice more than Hocus Pocus. Then again, Hocus Pocus, classic Disney Channel movie, right? It's a movie that you can watch with your kids every year at Halloween. It's a movie that we watch probably every year, or at least have playing when we're giving out
Carving
candy
pumpkins.
and stuff, or carving pumpkins.
Getting in the spirit of the season.
The trailer doesn't make me super excited for it. I will still go see it because I love Hocus Pocus, Halloween in general. But you made a great point. It's not for me. It was not written for me. It's written for this new generation.
And I hope they enjoy it like you did.
And yes. And I hope they go back and watch the original. And I hope they see how much heart was put into the original. You know, how much, I hope it'll spark some other kid to love Halloween as much as I do.
No, for sure.
So I would say that's it for the news today. I hope you enjoyed our conversation about it.
And now let's get into something a little bit meatier.
Yes. So spoiler alert for everything we're about to talk about.
Going forward on The Boys, Umbrella Academy 3, and Stranger Things.
Holy fuck! That was diabolical!
Okay, we're going to get into our first segment about The Boys.
We have really been enjoying this show. For those of you not watching The Boys, the briefest of synopsis I can give you, it's about a little bit more of a real world take on if superheroes existed, generally referred to as soups. And the name of the show, The Boys, is about a group of normal, everyday people who have come together to, I think, like to say, give the soups a spanking when they need it.
Except for Kimiko.
Well, fair enough, but we'll leave that one for you. But yeah, I mean, it's just all the action and adventure and drama that therein ensues. So fantastic show. If you haven't been watching it, you should be.
Yes, it's probably one of my favorite shows that have came out in the last couple of years. I love the comics, and I know the show's not following the comics to the T, but I love the adaptation that Amazon has put together for this show. It's probably one of maybe 5 shows that I follow on Amazon.
Hey, fair enough.
Out of all of them. But hey, Chris, what's your favorite moment so far in season 3? We have the season finale next
I
week.
think my favorite moment so far, and I'm going to cheat just a hair, spoiler warning, throughout the season, you know, I really just, I can't say it enough. I think Homelander, Anthony Starr, just like one of those like top tier villains, a Harry Potter's Dolores Umbridge, a Game of Thrones Joffrey, and as he continues to go through the season, the one thing I love that I keep taking away is he keeps having these little moments where in his twisted, you know, kind of not nice person that he is, I'm keeping it as PC there as I can. He has these little moments where he's trying, you can almost see that he's trying to reach out for help in the only way he knows how. And everybody's just so used to dealing with him as being this person that is just a constant threat. And so watching him try to make these like little points of contact, like, please help me, and just seeing his past come back to haunt him repeatedly has just been fantastic.
I think probably one of my favorite moments so far is definitely the addition of Jensen Ackles on the show. Like, I loved Supernatural. I think he's a great actor. I think some people don't give him enough credit than he deserves, right? I think he's fantastic. And I think him as Soldier Boy was just the cherry on top. I believe he was up for Captain America, or rumors was when they were first casting for Captain America, or he was a fan favorite at some point.
At some point, he was in some capacity, I feel like, looked at for Captain America, which is just really funny to see him coming to The Boys playing what is essentially the Captain America character.
Captain America / Winter Soldier, kind of.
For sure, but you're the one that read the comics. I haven't really delved into the comics. My whole take on this has been the show.
Oh, I think he's taken this character and developed it in his own ways. Again, I think they take some things from the comics. Obviously, comics give you a lot more room to play with, and there's certain things that could be allowed on streaming service, even though The Boys tend to take it up a notch and go to the extremes.
Dial it to 11 every time.
Especially this season. I also want to...
This season, they just snapped the knob off.
I also want to point out that I really like how developed Kimiko and Frenchie's relationship has evolved this season. I think Frenchie is just great. And that they took Kimiko, who in the comics is just called the female, and given her a personality in a sense. It's just been great. And that actress has her own YouTube channel that she can create cocktails with her co-stars, I believe. It's great. It's a fun watch.
That'd be a fun little one. We could throw that out on our social there so other people can enjoy it.
Now, what are your predictions for the season finale?
Season finale, once again, like a 92 Honda Civic, spoiler alert. I really think that we're going to end up seeing a role reversal here. That one was hard for me for a second. Soldier Boy spent the majority of this season working with at least a couple of the boys, specifically Butcher and Huey. And at the end of the episode, he makes that phone call out to Homelander. And when he does so, he's talking about changing sides because through everything that he's found out, and this was always my guess, turns out he looks like he's Homelander's dad. Awesome little turn of events. How do you make 2.0? Well, it's Homelander. That's what it is. And so he's talking about teaming up with them. So I think we're going to see a Homelander Soldier Boy team up.
That would be great. The rumor is there's a fan theory that Liberty, who, if you can look back on the series, Soldier Boy mentions that him and a soup called Liberty started Herogasm. Well, Liberty is also who Stormfront was in the past. So the theory is that Liberty could potentially be Homelander's mom. I really don't see them taking it up even further than 11 on that because spoilers, obviously, Homelander and Stormfront last season had an adult type of relationship going on, and I don't see that possible, especially if she thought herself that this could potentially be her kid. I'd be interested to see if they do ever go down the line of finding out who Homelander's mother is, because obviously it had to be another soup.
Well, and I feel like they have to too, especially if we're going to be Soldier Boy as his dad. I mean, I think you're right on the money on that one.
I also want to point out another character that I've really enjoyed, and I think you would agree on this. Ashley's overall character arc through
as the new
first season, season 2, and CEO, where there's moments of her breaking and her pulling her hair out, which is a callback to the comics, the character that she's based off of, constantly pulling out her hair. I think it's been great watching her evolve, where I think she has an internal fight going on there where she wants to do better, like especially that moment when Starlight confronted her, and you could see it in her eyes that she wanted help.
She knew what the right thing to do was, but she is just so scared of Homelander.
I don't think she's scared of Homelander. It's almost like a Stockholm syndrome where
I like that. I agree.
Maybe she's now in where she respects and wants to be on that side. Of the line, where she wants to be on Homelander's side, where maybe she thinks she'll be safer there. But I think it's been great.
Well, I think it was awesome in the episode where she really had to step up after they after Homelander kind of took over and just kind of like, Ashley, get it done. And then this was pointed out to me by somebody else, and I think it might have even been you. I'm pretty sure actually it was, that if you look at the suit she's wearing afterwards, it's a red and white pinstripe suit meant to evoke Homelander's Americana cape, kind of giving her that she's wearing her red power suit, as it were. So I just thought that was like a nice little nod to how she's falling in and how she's kind of making her way in Vought.
So let's get into predictions of what we think the season finale is going to be like. I personally think Maeve will die. That it's either Maeve or Starlight, but I can see them. I can see Maeve sacrificing herself to save the rest of them. I would be very interested to see if Butcher changes his perspective and saves Huey. Mm-hmm. We left off with the last episode where Starlight letting him know that the V compound that they're taking is making their brain Swiss cheese.
Yeah, melting their brains.
And one more dose could potentially kill them. And for Butcher not to tell Huey that information, even though there's a lot of theme of saving going on in this season, from saving Huey and Starlight going back and forth of who's saving who, Butcher not being able to save his brother, the group of them,
or his wife,
but mostly his brother. It's focused on this season,
for sure.
And Mother's Milk's family not being able to be was killed in order for Soldier Boy to be saving someone else. The whole group of them trying to save Soldier Boy. Just a lot of theme of saving going on here. Definitely the Deep redeeming himself. A-Train. I don't know if A-Train will redeem himself. I would hope so. You don't think so?
I don't. I think A-Train has a really great arc because I think he really has kind of come across a new path in life for himself where I think he wants to do better, but kind of just like Ashley, he's not sure how to break out of the path he's made for himself. And I think that apology he gave Huey during Herogasm, that was a really awesome moment for the show. I think the actor nailed that scene.
I think that was genuine. I think was definitely coming genuine from it. And especially my favorite scene of it is when he confronts Ashley and Ashley's like, I've covered up your shit for so many years. And now you want help. Now you want to be responsible. Now is it? I personally think he'll redeem himself in some way. Maybe we'll see. I'll be interested to see how Noir plays into this too, because the last episode was a little weird with the cartoon demonstration.
Chuck E. Cheese, more like Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah, the creepiness going on. But I'm very excited to see what the season finale would be, and we'll definitely cover it once we watch it next weekend.
Oh, for sure.
All right, so then I guess we'll move on to our next segment, which is going to be
Sparrow Academy.
Chapter 27, subsection 3b. The 7 stages in paradox psychosis are: Stage 1, denial. 2, itching. 3, extreme thirst and urination. 4, excessive gas. 5, acute paranoia. 6, uncontrolled perspiration. And 7, homicidal rage.
All right, Chris, we're going to get into Umbrella Academy 3, season 3, that just released a couple weeks ago. We binged it because, we're inside all day. For those of you that don't know what Umbrella Academy is, just to make it easy for you, it's a story about 43 infants that were born to random, unconnected women suddenly who were not pregnant at all, who basically have superpowers, each of them with random abilities, and 7 of them were adopted by this billionaire industrialist, mad scientist, Reginald Hargreaves, who created the Umbrella Academy and prepared his quote-unquote children to save the world. But as you can see in season 3, there's also now the Sparrow Academy.
Right, with that changing of the timeline, bringing in the new team.
I think it was a great season.
Oh no, I absolutely love this season. I thought it was great. I love seeing the different dynamics. I think the way Reginald Hargreaves took a different approach with the Sparrows, having had an opportunity in last season to talk to the Umbrella Academy in the past, and him to say, "Oh, I'm not making that mistake again."
But boy,
New children this time.
but boy, did that bite him in the ass, since the Sparrow Academy is now drugging him throughout this entire season. Well, at least towards the beginning and middle of the season, drugging him to keep him compliant.
A little more malleable.
Yes, and taking control of his money, his companies, the Sparrow Academy itself.
It was a very interesting role reversal, considering how much he was in charge of every second of every minute for everything that happened for the Umbrella Academy. And now you have the Sparrow Academy in this new timeline that is treating him that way.
Yes, but I would have to say, no matter what timeline, no matter where they are in the world, he's still a bastard.
A bastard covered bastard coated in bastard sauce.
So selfish, just to use these poor individuals that he has tortured. And I would say, even though the Sparrow Academy and those characters had a little bit more freedom and independence than the Umbrella Academy, they still, didn't grow up with somebody who loved them, who wanted to take care of them. The entire time, his plan was always to utilize these children for his own gain. Now, I understand it's to save his wife. I understand you go to the ends of, I would go to the ends of the world for you.
Well, and he literally did.
But I don't know if I would harm other people purposely, or at least take children away from families. And granted, some of these families are like, hey, give me money. Here's the kid, We never even planned to have kids in the first place. I don't know if I would be able to do that. But then again, he's not really a human.
True.
Either. He's a different type of being. Some people say robot.
No, he's definitely an
alien or something. He's got like a sci-fi
subterranean lizard person.
Yeah, something to it. But this season definitely was something I was looking forward to. Season 2 was great. I love the Dallas storyline. I'm a sucker for anything taking place historic, intertwining those stories with history.
Making it work.
So good. But you could definitely see the difference between season 2 and season 3, especially with the pandemic hitting, filming issues. Just looking at the character Ben, if you look at the end of season 2, when he introduces himself to the Umbrella Academy after they thought they were back in their own house and their own timeline.
You have punk rock Ben.
Yeah, you have punk rock Ben with like the slick emo hair and the scar. And then you look at season 3 when it opened up, and he's more of like a preppy boy.
He's the jerky high school jock.
Yes, the jerky high school jock, for sure. And I would say this season, 2 of my favorite characters. Klaus. I love Klaus. I've loved Klaus since season 1. Just him and his like dad and him road trip, and how he always tries to spin it positively. And we also now are getting a sober Klaus too.
This is true.
Which is a completely different perspective. And him trying to help his dad sober up as well.
Sharing his sobriety with his
kind of
father.
Backfired on him.
Yeah.
I liked that. I do love 5. 5 is great. I think 5 to me overall, just snarky. The character, I just like him.
Can I even get one day of rest? I just wanted to retire. I'll tell you, he reminds me a lot of my dad, and with that similar work ethic. And my father actually recently retired. I'll tell you what, the honest answer is, because I know she's gonna want to ask this question. Did he want to retire? The answer is no. Their favorite hobbies, work.
That's true. And then the contrast of Victor and Luther, where Victor was trying to step up to be number 1. I wouldn't even say number 1, because we were talking about off air, that the Umbrella Academy is different than the Sparrow Academy, where the Umbrella Academy doesn't really care about numbers, doesn't care who's number 1, number 2, number 3. Sparrow Academy, that's all they live for. Look at Ben, always trying to get to be number 1.
Get back to number 1.
Or, well, get back to number 1. But I love that Victor is trying to stand up to be the leader of his siblings, trying to keep everyone together, trying to do what's best, right? And then Luther, on the other hand, wants a break, takes a step down, more focused on himself, still wants everyone to be happy, but I don't think Luther really wanted to lead the team in this regard
No,
of saving the world again.
Well, I agree. And I also think a big part of this too comes from the fact that, one of the bigger parts of his character from the first season, he was living on the moon.
Yes.
He was actually living on the moon by himself with, radio transmissions to Father. But I don't think he ever really got any responses. And I think his disconnection from the family there it's all he has left. But I don't think he knows what else to do. And I think that's kind of why he hangs out with the Umbrella.
And I would say I did not see him being killed in those last couple episodes. I mean, I had a sneaky suspicion that Reginald was up to no good. Just something.
Started causing trouble in the neighborhood.
And then kills him. And then kills poor Klaus again.
Well, he tried to kill Klaus.
If you had to pick one of the superpowers, which one would you take? Both between the Umbrella Academy and these Sparrows.
I'm going to be honest. I think Faye's crow powers were really cool. However, I would definitely go with Sloane. I think her gravity powers are fantastic. She might have been my favorite character for the whole season.
The new introduction character?
Yeah, I liked her a lot just because I feel like the way she stood out from everyone else was that she was kind of the only one left that had any kind of ability to be positive.
I would stick with Allison. I love Allison's rumor.
I mean, rumor's super strong. I understand.
And she even got stronger. And then for her to almost turn into the villain this season, too. But I would say villain maybe is the wrong word. Because she's going through grief. She lost her husband. Purposely, she decided to leave the love of her life so that she could go back to her child in a different timeline. And then to lose her child on top of it. And then have no way of getting back to either of them. I mean, I don't know what I would do in that situation. I would be angry. I would be bitter. I would be standoffish.
Not the villain, but struck by grief, the antagonist.
Yes. I mean, at the end, she kind of turned it over and helped her siblings so they wouldn't die.
Right, but she was also doing the bare minimum for herself.
That's true. Do you think she ended up in the same timeline?
I do. I think in order to keep the story a little bit more clean, a little bit more cohesive, I think she's going to get set up as an antagonist for at least part of next season. And then from there, I'm sure she'll end up rejoining the team or not. And that'd be pretty exciting too.
I'm excited for next season. It's supposed to be the last season for the series. They're going to wrap it up. I hope they wrap it up pretty well. There's been a lot of disappointment with series finales. Dexter. But there have been some really great series finales. Peaky Blinders. So I'd be interested to see how the Umbrella Academy evolves, especially in this new timeline where they don't have powers and Reginald owns everything and even has his wife back. Will they have doppelgangers in this timeline? Will they not? The grandfather paradox, all of it. So good. So highly recommend it for anyone who likes weird sci-fi, campy. I would say it's a little campy too. Dark humor, offbeat. Highly recommend it. Again, this season, I would give it probably a 3.54 out of 5, only because I think there were a couple episodes in the middle that could have been cut out and made the story progress a little bit faster. It definitely slowed down a little bit, but I would say it's great. Everyone, superb acting, great characters, great introduction to the Sparrows.
I'd give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed, especially the way the season ended. I liked the way everything was shot. I loved the set for the hotel. And my only con for the whole season was I thought it started. I didn't like how it started. I thought it ended tremendously. And so I feel that you have to work yourself. You just got to know that you're going to be putting in a little bit of work to get towards that end, but it is worth the wait.
All right. So, Chris, we're going to dive into the biggest portion of our episode today, which is
strange. What would that be?
Stranger Things. All right, Chris. Stranger Things. Oh, man, this season. Wow. Just wow.
Hands down, one of the best seasons of television I have ever seen.
every time we watch a new show, and there are shows that I love, and there are shows that we both love to watch together, and they're great. They're great. But then Stranger Things comes back and just blows them out of the water every single time. And yes, I am even talking about season 3 just as well. A lot of people didn't like season 3. I liked season 3. I thought it was great. But just before we get into it, just so our listeners know, Stranger Things is basically about a little girl with a shaved head who mysteriously shows up. A bunch of boys find her randomly.
A D&D group.
Yeah, a D&D group randomly finds her in the woods.
Dungeons and Dragons for the uninitiated.
And the story starts to evolve around a small town, uncovering secrets about government labs, portals to another world, and sinister monsters. I went in with the first season not expecting anything.
Me too.
Well, you never saw the first season, and we'll get into that. You never saw Steve in the first season.
Stranger Things, when the first season launched, and I will never begrudge anyone for enjoying what they enjoy. In season 1, probably fantastic from everything that I've heard. But at the time when it came out, all I could do was be overwhelmed by the hype train. I was just so tired of hearing it. But by the time season 2 came out, I think I was just walking through the living room while she was starting to watch it. I went, yeah, I'll check it out. And now here I am, seasons 2, 3, and 4. And I like to think it gives me a probably poor, but interesting perspective on the progression of the characters in Stranger Things.
Especially Steve. Yes.
What do you mean, especially Steve? The babysitter? King Steve, the best character in all of Stranger Things for every season?
Well, Steve was supposed to be the biggest douchebag on the planet originally written, but I guess Joe Keery, I'm hoping I'm saying his last name right, I apologize if I'm not, was just so much more likable and charming that they just evolved the character more than what they envisioned. Yeah, I thought that was really cool. Also, a fun fact I found out while I was just doing a little bit of research is that they originally auditioned 906 boys and 307 girls for the children's roles.
So just a couple.
Yeah. And I mean, I would love to do just a solo episode on just Stranger Things throughout the whole entire series.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, you have to also remember between season 3 and season 4, there are a 3-year gap, with the pandemic, them being able to film, which I think might have worked in their favor to take some time to really evolve it out.
Right. Probably didn't feel like it at the time, but I think that gap of time really allowed them to hone the product that they were just putting out. And once again, tremendously fantastic season. And
for this season to have basically 3 storylines going on. So we have Eleven, who now lives in California with life, no powers because she lost her powers at the end of season 3. Trying to be a normal girl, trying to make friends, kind of
trying.
Yeah, writes back to Mike, giving him this illusion that she's, a popular girl, has so many friends, and honestly, she's the weirdo, right, of the school. We have Will, who is trying to, I think, internally fight with himself, which you didn't see season 1, so Will has gone through a lot, both in the Upside Down and.
Now, for listeners, I do have a general summary of what has happened in season 1 at this point, but yeah, no, being trapped in the Upside Down for that long would clearly has effects.
And then we have Jonathan, who smoking pot, doesn't know what he wants to do with his life, doesn't even want to go back to Hawkins to see Nancy, doesn't even want that relationship.
You know what he wants to do with his life?
He just wants to
sit with Argyle and get on some of that purple palm tree delight.
And Argyle is a great character. I think he envisions 80s stoner perfectly, right? I'm sorry, 80 California stoners perfectly. It's just the hair from the outfits
to the dude,
pizza booth.
What's going on?
Yeah. And then we have Joyce, who gets a mysterious box leading her to believe Harper is still alive, and it decides to go to Russia and save Harper.
Hopper?
Hopper. Why did I say
Harper?
Harper.
You
Sorry.
must have been thinking about Dungeons and Dragons, the Harpers. I got you.
Okay, thank you. Hopper.
That's definitely what's happening.
Which I think is more of the action pack storyline going on.
Oh yeah, it's a whole prison break.
You know, espionage, Russia, United States. He's
Well, I like
a prisoner of not war, but just a prisoner
Mhm.
trying to save him. Him go and look how much weight he lost for this role. Holy cow! And just
It's like he lost a whole Red Guardian.
right. And then we go back to Hawkins, which we have Dustin trying to keep it together, right? Keep everybody
Mhm.
together, but also being sarcastic. He's kind of a mix of both Steve and Eddie, like trying to copy their personalities.
That's exactly what he is.
Right? Like a little brother would. You're a little, you have a little brother.
He was, he respects the absolute shit out of both of them. The absolute shit out of both of them, even if he doesn't always understand why. And so I think that's just how he chooses to grow as a person, is by emulating those like Eddie, like King Steve, the best character ever.
Daddy Steve.
Daddy Steve. I had to hear that one all that season.
All right. And then we have Lucas, who's trying to be the popular kid on his basketball team, trying to have that type of life.
Trying to branch out into life.
Yeah. And then Mike, obviously. Mike is more with the California crew, right? He flies to C11.
Starts in Hawkins, but the very start of the season, straight out to California to go with the well, and I think it's really interesting how they broke it down, because we're talking about how they have broke it into 3 separate segments, with the Russia crew, the Hawkins crew, and the California crew. And I think it's really interesting how it's all one story, but you're getting very different tales in each one. You're getting kind of I would, because of Mike, I would actually call the California kind of like a road trip.
Yep, like a road trip. Yeah, definitely.
With the people in Russia, you're getting yourself that kind of 80s classic Cold War Wolverines kind of vibe going on, And then from there, you have your classic Stranger Things still taking place in Hawkins.
Oh, totally. Definitely Nightmare on Elm Street vibes. Definitely a lot of 80s horror tropes going on. And I'm a big King head, a lot of Stephen King influence. I think Stranger Things overall, a lot of Stephen King influence, whether they would admit it or not. I mean, it is one of my favorite books, and definitely the coming of age tale with monsters and just overall. I mean, at the end, Lucas is reading one of a Stephen King book to Max. And that brings me to Max, I totally left field for me on this, because season 3, both of us were kind of 50-50 on her as a character.
I didn't like Max. You don't have to make excuses for me.
The
actress did a fine job. It was the way the character was written for me. I just found her, I'll be blunt, kind of obnoxious most of the time.
But I think they just took her and decided to just, hey, let's take you to nobody would expect it coming. Let's take you to another level. And her grief of losing her brother, who she hated anyway, because he made her life a living hell. Shout out to Billy. Or Barb.
Back to the boys. Shout out to Timothy.
Oh, yeah.
Justice for Timothy.
Justice for Timothy. And then we have our newcomer, Eddie, who
starts out, I really thought I wasn't going to like him. I thought they're going to make him just a little bit too aggressive. But heart of gold on that one, as you end up finding out.
Eddie, to me, how do I say this? Engulfs and we both have Dungeons and Dragons experience. We've played games before. Eddie, to me, engulfs what a lot, I would say majority of players are like to me. They're happy, campy, want to play, want to, good, solid heart, maybe a little sarcastic, but generally just wants the best for people, right? I mean, one of our friends who's a DM, I would have to say, Eddie reminds me a lot of him too. And holy cow, just a side note, the actor who plays Eddie, I can't remember his name for the life of me. And I apologize. I should have this in front of me, but I don't. I thought I did in my notes.
The point is coming.
I know. Get to the name. The point is coming. Oh, Joseph Quinn. Joseph Quinn. Young Robert Downey Jr. 100%. ever Robert Downey Jr. biopic.
So one of
he
my
should
least
play.
favorite things about this season is every time Eddie has been on screen, she has turned to me and gone, "Oh my goodness, he is just the spitting image of a young Robert Downey." And I
I've
don't
showed you
necessarily
pictures of it.
disagree.
He does
I
look
don't
like
disagree, but
Robert
it was
Downey.
like every single time
He
was
does.
on camera.
It amazes me how much he looks like young Robert Downey Jr. Nobody can argue with me on this. I'm sorry, you're wrong. He looks like young Robert Downey.
No, I
Jr.
agree with you. I'm
You're
not
like,
wrong. I agree
No,
with
I
you.
meant like if anybody else
Oh.
is like, kind of me. No, he does. He looks like a young Robert Downey Jr. to me.
They didn't have to de-age Robert Downey in Iron Man when he was using the barf system. And what was that, number 3? They could have just used this guy.
That's true. And then in Hawkins, we also have Robin and Steve, right? Steve trying to figure out what he wants to do, kind of sucking at dating. Nobody's really hitting the mark for him. And then we have Rob. Yeah, definitely. Back then you had to hide it. I mean, you didn't have to hide it, but no, you did have to hide it,
No,
right?
you absolutely had to hide
or
it.
you'd become basically the town's, I don't know,
Pariah.
I guess. I think, and then overall, the whole story in Hawkins, we have the basketball team and then the satanic panic, right?
Satanic panic, yep.
After Chrissy dies, after the leader of the basketball team, Jason, his girlfriend, and, him and her are like the standard prom king and prom queen. Perfect. But we learned that Chrissy's dealing with some issues, right? Her mom, she's got some guilt about her mom's overall pressure of like staying thin. And that brings us
young
in
and pretty
of her trying to buy drugs from Eddie, right? To kind of get out of that mindset. But that brings us into our villain. Vecna. Holy cow.
We didn't even time that. That was well done.
Vecna, I think, is a great villain. We went from the Mind Flayer to Vecna. Now,
and I love the design.
Yes, the design is great. Definitely some D&D tropes there, right? The enlarged hand.
Well, you always like to do the various things. So for those of you who are not a D&D initiated individual, one of the things that I think has been excellent, or has made it a little bit more fun for me, I should say, going through the different seasons. Obviously you had the Demogorgon, which was a D&D monster. You have, then from there moved on to the Mind Flayer, who was it's kind of like an increase in power. You're moving on to a more deadly and dangerous foe of a Mind Flayer. And then you moved on to Vecna. I think that was really one of the coolest little Easter eggs you could have going into the season. If you had any D&D knowledge of Vecna, where that character story comes from is it was actually a mortal, normal person. Well, not normal, highly motivated, we'll say, who actually in the D&D universe achieves godhood, goes from a normal mortal human being to a god. So going into this season, I knew off the bat that had to play a role in how they named him. And I will get there, but I was definitely proven right. And I think it's these like little nods that are just fantastic.
Did you know that Demi Gordon was actually an animatronic?
I actually didn't.
Yeah, obviously there's some CGI assisting with that, but I thought that was kind of cool that it was an actual animatronic. Yeah, I wonder where we're going next. We're going next, I think, to a combination of both Vecna and Mind Flayer in the next season.
Well, and I was trying to figure out, what was your take, and we're kind of jumping ahead here, but what was your take towards the end when Vecna is telling his story at the end of the season about how he ended up, or I should say Henry, or number 1, or Vecna.
Vecna slash Henry slash 1.
They refer to him as Slash. But it was very interesting because when he was referring to himself as an explorer in this new land, and he came across the Mind Flayer, we kind of initially thought that he would have been under the control of the Mind Flayer. I feel like that was kind of the presumption that they say during the season, that he was like a general of the Mind Flayer.
I would have to disagree with you.
But, well, this is what I was getting to, is I think at the end of the season, what we really find out is he took control of the Mind Flayer, which would make more sense D&D lore speaking wise.
I don't think it was controlling the Mind Flayer. I think it was a partnership. The reason why I think he was attracted to the Mind Flayer was, it was obvious.
Power.
No, not powered. I mean, watching the episode where you give the background story and you finally realize that Vecna is one, right?
Mhm.
Throughout, and which, by the way, spoiler, Vecna is one, right? I saw that coming. You could
Well, yeah.
obviously see that by when you, one, introduce a new character, two, just by his posture. And it's similar to how Vecna's posture was. And the eyes, too, as well. Okay? Couldn't fool me. Couldn't fool me. Kind of had a feeling about it. But the episode where you get the background story about one, right? That he's Henry and the haunted house going on, and his dad taking blame for the murders. What was the thing that they pointed out the most? His love of
Spiders.
Black widows, particularly. And what does the Mind Flayer look like?
True, and that is one of the things that I agree drew him into the Mind Flayer, and I also like how we found out, because you just kicked a memory into my head, because I remember they cut back to him drawing the Mind Flayer, just like how the villains were drawn in previous seasons, and to show that he'd been being affected since his youth,
yes,
in such a capacity. But I really feel like my personal takeaway was at the end of it. Yes, you might be more correct in saying it was a partnership. I like that. I would also say, though, that he was more than happy to take that on to himself to continue his, that power, that malevolent force that is the Mind Flayer, and to work it towards his own will.
I could see that. I think the Mind Flayer itself maybe was an entity in that world, and that him drawing it or giving it a form just allowed it to evolve. Like, it was already in that world. It already existed there. It just didn't have a form for itself. So it decided to utilize what Vecna, the love of spiders. I could see that happening. There's also the storyline of 11 evolving, right? 11 starting off no powers this season,
Right.
trying to be normal. And then for her to go through the task of teaming back up with Papa, who I honestly don't think was a monster from kind of.
No,
yes.
Papa was a monster.
Okay, Papa maybe was a monster.
I think he had good intentions, but had zero ability to execute in any capacity that was on the side of angels.
Yes, and then for him to utilize her to go find one, I don't think was in a sense to control everyone. I think it was more in a sense to kind of atone for his mistakes, to go find him and try to fix what happened. I don't see it so much as, oh, we're going to go in and we're going to pull him back out and then control him. I think it was more of like, oh man, I need to atone for this. I need to fix this. I shouldn't, I don't want to evolve, because, he did say he loved his children.
Yeah, but so do a lot of abusers.
That's true. That's true.
You can't fix things by breaking more things. That could work on occasion, but that can't be your go-to every time.
Well, there's also the contrast of Dr. Brenner's to Dr. Owens, right?
Oh, for sure.
Who actually seemed empathetic, cared, wanted to help, wanted these kids to be okay, where Brenner was trying to just get his own agenda taken care of.
Yep. Well, and I think he had one of the better, actually, I think Dr. Brenner, Papa, had one of the better scenes of the whole season, and that is because they kept reusing it and the way the context kept changing. So when you have the scene where you have the lab in Hawkins and all of the dead children and attendants from 111 was there, and there's the hole in the wall sealing up, and he comes into the room, and what have you done?
Yeah.
And that was like,
chilling,
man, that was a whole ordeal in terms of like how you thought he witnessed that. And then as you continue, they go back to the scene a couple times, and then you find out that it was 11 sending Henry /1/Vecna into the Upside Down.
Yeah.
And that changes it, because to me it was like, oh no, Brenner thinks 11 killed all these people. And that's why he is the way he is towards her. But my final takeaway at the end was exactly what you're saying. I think in some capacity, he wanted to save, or at least, even if it was for selfish motivational reasons, bring Henry /1/Vecna back. And I think he knew that he knew that 11 had sent Henry, had done something to him.
Yes.
And so when he said, "What have you done?" It wasn't about the children. It wasn't about what we all might have thought 11 had done. It was about the fact that she had gotten rid of Henry. And I think that was really the blow for him.
Yeah. I loved the scene where Brenner's dying, trying to say, hey, please, say you forgive me, say you understand. And she's like, goodbye, Papa, and walks away. And they should have just had explosions behind her.
Bam! Poof, 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 poof.
I thought that was great. To me, that means 11 has grown up.
Oh, absolutely.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
I also like if you watch throughout the series too, bringing it to 11, trying to be a normal girl. Do you notice that Joyce throughout the whole time says, my kids, counts her as one of her kids? Like, doesn't say my kids in 11. When she's saying, hey, I have to get back to the States. I have to get back to my kids. I have kids at home. She includes 11 in that, which I see that.
Well, that whole team's a family.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I just love this series.
You look at guys who, were in the military, who went overseas and did whatever they had to do together. And, they come back, where they, you see it a lot, brothers, right? Brothers in arms. And I think it's definitely that. They're definitely closer. And I think it's just all these different separate people who were forced to come together, kind of made their own little twisted, let's say, well, not twisted, but let's save the world family.
That's true. Did you know it took the Duffer Brothers almost 4.5 hour meeting with Winona Ryder to convince her to play Joyce?
I actually had no idea. I don't know who
I would pick for that role. I love Winona Ryder, though.
Feel free to jump on our socials and let us know what you would say. Who would be a better or a decent replacement for Joyce? If you thought that, if you could think of somebody other than Winona Ryder.
And there's one character we haven't mentioned yet who I think kind of got sidelined a little bit, even though she's a little bit more involved towards the last 2 episodes, or last 3, and that would be Nancy. Yeah. I think Nancy, overall, I've liked Nancy. She's okay. I've never not liked Nancy, but I think she's gotten a little, again, sidelined.
Season 1 aside, I agree. I feel like she's never utilized to her full degree, but I love when they use her.
Yes.
I think she's a fantastic character.
And utilizing her for Vecna to show her like what's going to happen to Hawkins, oh my God, I thought she was going to die.
Let me give you a vision. Oh, you done did it.
Exactly. And it's the same. Both, she was utilized very well. Max was utilized very well. The basketball players too, the whole satanic panic, which if you've never looked into that time history in the United States, I recommend it. I'm a big true crime buff. It's so interesting, especially if you play D&D. It's great to kind of know what's going on, especially if you like true crime. But for the basketball players, I think they fit really well into this whole season. They weren't like overly annoying or over the top usage, but especially the last episode where we have now Max trying to bait Vecna in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's getting ready for battle. Everyone's ready to go. We have 11 trying to get into Max's mind all the way in California. Yeah. Piggyback, right. And then we have...
No, from Nevada, remember?
Oh, from Nevada. Oh, right, because they're at a different pizza serve. Yeah. Pineapple on pizza. I like it. And then we have Joyce and...
Now the internet's going to love us.
Murph and Hopper, trying to kill these demo dogs and demo Gordons and all these, to allow to kind of hit Vecna in some way, right? Mm-hmm. Honestly, I think it was a little bit of a a
Right.
easy way to kind of include them in the final battle without having.
I mean, their final fight was awesome.
I understand it's a little hard to get to
But it was a
from
little
Russia,
shoehorned.
Russia to Indiana in like what 20 minutes, and then we have everyone at Hawkins, right? We have Nancy and Steve and Robin going into the upside down, and Eddie and Dustin, but the three of them going in to go kill Vecna. We have Dustin and Eddie to distract the bats. We have Erica and Lucas with Max. And the whole time we're watching this last episode, and the basketball players really didn't come up very much in the previous two. I mean, there was the hall meeting and stuff, but there wasn't really much of an impact. But for them then to show up while Lucas is trying to protect Max, while she's trying to bait Vecna, and then we have Erica, who kicked the shit out of like somebody twice her size to get back to it. But the whole battle...
Well, she didn't kick the shit out of him. She kicked the reproductive bits out of him.
The whole battle between Lucas and Jason, who Lucas said, hey man, I looked up to you. I wanted to be you. But then realizing you're just a psychopath.
Mm-hmm.
And then to really go after him, not go after him, but to defend himself, also to help protect Max. And then for Max to turn out how it happened, where she was...
because I still want to talk about the basketball players for a second.
Yeah. Okay. One thing I wanted to point out, I did not see them killing Jason off that fast. When Vecna finally got like, he just like dissolved.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, I guess that's what you get.
Yeah, when the portal,
yes,
when the earthquake, the rift occurs, and then like, you see it headed towards him. Oh, he's just gonna fall in, or he's gonna catch on fire, or whatever is gonna happen. When this abyss opens up, I did not expect it to just unravel reality through his body.
Well, I kind of had a feeling that this season definitely, our crew at Hawkins, the whole crew, was not going to win totally. They've won the last two seasons, right? Up against the Mind Flayer, the Demigorgon. They've won them, right? Mm-hmm. This definitely turns the tide. Where it
gave him an Avengers Endgame. We're going to stick it with a loss before we bring you back for the last season.
This is true. I mean, they lost in a sense, right? I mean, the town is okay. People are okay. Vecna is wounded, and
they won the battle, but the war's not looking so hot.
Yeah, and then for Max to end up how she did, that's a loss for them too.
But I still want to talk about the basketball team.
Oh, go ahead.
Because I thought it was really interesting with the whole satanic panic thing, and when you're talking about how they utilized the basketball team, you go back to how the season started, and here they are holding a pep rally at the school. Everyone's so excited about it. And then as things start to turn, and it kind of gives you a feel of that old school, classic, small town, we're all going to go out Friday night lights. We're going to see the football game, or in this case, basketball game. And then when things turn south, and it happened with the head of the basketball team. And then, of course, he shows up at that meeting, and in a complete polar opposite, but exact same way, he rallies the town to the whole satanic panic. And I thought that was really interesting, to see this young man come in and just like get the whole town worked up into this degree was a craze. It was just a craze, like the satanic panic was.
Yeah, it definitely throws back to 80s films, the easiness of it, the trope of it, of like the town getting, the small town feel, the basketball player, trying to get everybody together, trying to rally everybody and stuff. Reminds me a little bit of Red Dawn too,
Yep.
It definitely, I could see that being, 80s in general, a lot of, and also one thing I want to mention, kind of a little bit of Alien Independence Day when they find it, when Joyce and Marie and Hopper, and then they all find the Demogorgons like suspended in water.
The suspension tanks, the trademarked Bacta tanks.
Correct. Yes.
Of course, Bacta's for healing, but now we're getting super nerdy.
That's true. Hopefully someone can understand what we're referencing.
Bacta tanks. Who's with me on Bacta tanks? Also, if you watched any of the latest Star Wars series, who's tired of seeing Bacta tanks?
Well, what would you say is your favorite part of this whole entire season?
I love Argyle. everything he participated in with generally was a nice little bit of comedic relief. I think that the way the character is written and his style of relief is a little aggressive, but I think they used it perfectly because they used him in just these little short bits that I thought were phenomenal. But when I think about the season as a whole, my brain goes towards the very end of the last episode, and that is, Max and her fight with Vecna. And I'll tell you, for a second there, you thought they were going to win the day. And then you watch as the arms and the legs start doing the things that Vecna does. And you're like, oh God, are they going to make it? Like, this is already terrible. Are they going to be able to make it in time? And then you see 11 kind of step up and like, no. And they kind of like, she's working on something, kind of fades out. You end up having Max in the hospital. You have Lucas there reading to her. Everybody shows up to see what's going on. And then later you get that final callback where they show her in Max's mind after she's
11.
brought her back. Yeah, 11. Yes, thank you. And for her to just internalize knowing and not telling anyone. Because how do you tell them? How do you tell them, I saved her life, but she is gone?
Yeah.
I mean, I think she didn't just die. She turned into a vegetable.
Yeah. Once you die in the Upside Down, you die. A lot of people, it's not like normal. I wouldn't say normal, but other.
Well, I never felt like she really fully died in the Upside Down, though.
But she was. Lucas said her heart stopped.
Right.
She died, and then.
Well, yeah, when your limbs get broken like that, that'll cause enough trauma.
Yeah, that was. It calls back to the graveyard scene too. That was everybody's right. Everybody's running up that hill. Everybody's running up that hill. If you like Stranger Things,
literally and figuratively,
that is probably on your playlist, right? You've probably listened to it into the ground, right? We're gonna run up that hill, and I would have to say my favorite is two storylines. I like the Russian storyline.
Mm-hmm.
I like the introduction of Enzo. I thought he's a great character.
Yeah, I thought the guy played that really well.
Definitely a great counterpart to Hopper. I also like Murray. I think Murray, like, I caught myself laughing quite a bit at this time.
Murray has no right to be as enjoyable and useful as he is.
That's true. Murray is like what I think I'll turn into if I start believing into a lot of conspiracy theories. And I would also say I liked the flashback storyline of when Eleven's in Nina and trying to get her powers back. And then you learn a little bit more about the facility and the other kids. And then his storyline. Love the Robert Englund
that was a great
too.
little nod.
That was great, especially since the first half of this season, the first volume, total Nightmare on Elm Street vibes with Vecna attacking, taking these kids into almost illusional realms of, showing their guilt. And that's how he like kills them, right? Mm-hmm. Basically in their sleep, like their eyes are rolled back and stuff. Not true sleeping, but you know what I mean? I loved that. And one more thing. I loved the Eddie storyline. I loved the ending for Eddie. I really wish he didn't die. I don't think they would have thought Eddie was going to be this much of a likable character.
Right. That's what I was thinking. You said that after it ended, and I agreed with you 100%.
I cried. It broke my heart to watch Dustin hold him up, him saying he didn't run away, right?
Yeah. And
the whole time, the town that he loves, the people that he loves. I mean, even caring for Chrissy without really knowing her, too. All of these things, it just broke my heart. And then for Dustin to tell his uncle, like, Eddie wasn't a monster. Eddie wasn't a villain. Eddie was a true hero. And I started crying.
And that was it when he said Eddie was a hero.
Oh, I would have loved to see Eddie in the next season. Obviously not. I feel like every time I watch a season of this show, my favorite characters die. I liked Barb, which, fun fact, that was the actress's first role ever.
Oh, I didn't know that one either. Man,
well, you've never seen season 1.
There's another season?
Yeah, season 1. I liked Billy from season 3, even though he was the villain. I thought he played that really well. Then he ended up dying. Now Eddie ended up dying. It's kind of like Game of Thrones. Don't get too comfortable with these characters. Though the whole time we were watching the last part of this season, I kept going, Steve's going to die, Chris. And you're like, oh.
She kept saying, I love Steve. She kept saying it.
And there's like certain,
and I kept feeling it.
Certain conversations Steve would have with other characters, certain things he would do. And you go, yep, he's going to die. And I'm like,
it's like the horror checklist of, he may as well have said, hey guys, I think I heard something. I'll be right back.
Yep. And
you guys just stay here. I'll go by myself.
The whole time I'm like, man, I can't wait to get everybody together, right? We wanted to see all those characters.
I really thought everybody was going to come together at the end. I mean, how do you get them from Russia to Indiana?
Yeah, but
the upside down.
What I wanted to say was everybody come together, but I kept going to you and be like, yeah, I want everybody to come together. You're like, yeah, I want everybody to come together. I know they're going to come together. It's Steve's funeral.
That was such a jerk move.
But the ending was great. The reuniting between Eleven and Hopper had, a true father figure that loves her, wants the best for her, doesn't have his own agenda for her. And for Hopper to go
Shout out for all the real papas out there.
I know. And for Hopper to go through that whole time of, him losing his daughter, his wife, being an alcoholic, going through all that turmoil, and then for Eleven to come into his life and then for him to disappear again, but that was a great, like, coming together, all of them. And then Nancy and Jonathan both kind of walking on eggshells around each other of like, yeah, we definitely want to make this work. Yeah, we really want to make this work. Well, no, you don't.
They want to make it last just long enough that Steve and Nancy can fall back in love in the final season.
That's true. I really thought it was going to happen this season. I think a lot of people did. And I think a lot of people were like, why? But it's because Steve grew up. And one thing I want to point it out, it kind of brings me back, the usage of finding out Victor's, or not Victor's, who were they trying to find out in the address for the...
Oh, for the pot guy.
Oh, the pot guy.
I can't think what he was called now.
I forgot what he was called, but utilizing... I used to work at a video store.
The way they were going through the movies,
yes.
Going like, okay, who rented what? Like, we have a first name. Like, now we gotta look through the rentals and stereotype the shit out of someone.
It brought me back to working at Hollywood Video. Oh, man. I never worked at, like, the big name ones, like Family Video or...
Hollywood Video was big name.
Blockbuster. It was not as big as Blockbuster.
No, Blockbuster was the big one, but I think Family Video was bigger than... I think that Hollywood Video was bigger than Family Video, but it's funny to me because Family Video is still around. That's
true. I mean,
Who's laughing now?
All right. I think my best time was working for a video rental place.
I'm sure it's a great time.
Especially, I don't know how other people who've worked at it, but we were always allowed to, like, take a certain amount of VHSs, that's just nice, and DVDs home to watch.
Like I said, DVDs just to make it a little bit easier.
A little bit easier. Blu-ray, whatever. DVD, no, Blu-ray. I don't think Blu-ray.
No, Blu-ray probably wasn't out yet.
DVDs, VHS,
elder millennial,
and being able, because they wanted us to be able to talk about these things and recommend, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would just, like, grab TV series that came out that were on HBO that I probably was way too young to watch. Sorry, Dad. Like The Sopranos, or I think The L Word, which I didn't know going in what that was about. I was way too young to even watch that. Again, sorry, Dad.
But this is coming back to Stranger Things, I promise.
I promise. But the usage of that was great, because think of Stranger Things if they had cell phone capability.
Oh, I mean, it's a totally different show.
Right? Or, like, they had even better airline ability.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Or they had Teslas.
She wants a Tesla.
I do, but if they had Teslas. But it would
Episode
be
Episode 1, sponsor us, Tesla Senpai.
But I think that's part... Okay, so let me get to my point, right? I'm rambling. To my point is, I think it was really refreshing to watch something that the show didn't have plot holes in it depending on technology. Because nowadays, it's very hard to come up with something that doesn't involve a cell. So like, why doesn't a character call this person? Why does a cell phone use this? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like for them to say, okay, we got to really like do some investigating. We have to use the family or video rental area place and look up a name and then look up cost, compare video rentals. I thought that was brilliant.
Or trying to get a hold of Joyce, not being able to not get a hold of her because she was in Russia, but they all just assume, well, she's selling encyclopedias. That's probably what's happening at this point.
Right. Or the fact that when they went to visit Dustin's girlfriend and he's like, Jonathan's like, what's the internet? It's like, don't worry about it. It's just something that's going to change the world.
By the way, for those of you out there who aren't an elder millennial or older, an encyclopedia is called a book. And a series of encyclopedias would be what you might refer to as Wikipedia these days.
That's true. And you had to buy each letter separately.
Yes, individual volumes.
And that's how you would do your reports too for school. You had to go in.
Bibliographies. Now we're definitely getting out of tangent.
Now we're getting out of tangent. But anyway, I just want to say Stranger Things, go watch it. You'll enjoy it. I think honestly, it might even be a little, I would say family friendly. Obviously, there's a lot of dark
horror
tones,
components.
Horror
There's some dark
components.
tones, yeah.
People die in it throughout the whole series. But if you like coming of age stories, if you like stories like Stephen King stories, if you like 80s
You like that
horror
blast of
trope,
nostalgia,
if you love all that, if you love product placement like Coke,
then it's worth running up that road. It's worth running up that hill. It's worth watching Stranger Things season 4.
Chris, I have one last question for you.
Hit me.
What's that one song that Vecna would save you from Vecna?
The one song that would save me from Vecna? It would be Logic, probably every day, because I work hard every day. Yay, yay, yay. How about you?
For me, it would be Surface's Sunday Best. So upbeat and happy.
You got to keep that sunshine on your Sunday best.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Children of all ages. We really appreciate you listening in on our first podcast episode. We would love feedback, so please hit us up on all social media.
Let us know if there's something you want us to talk about. Please, there's a couple of times you said answer. We want to know what you guys are thinking when we ask those questions. By all means, reach out. We want to have these conversations. Inside All Day Podcast, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, even Discord. Yes, I'm not that old. Even Discord. Please hit us up. Give us recommendations. Give us some feedback. We really want to hear what you have to say. We want to engage. We want to grow. We want to do better for you and with you. And please tune in to our next episode, which will be covering our review of Thor, where the MCU is probably going with Phase 5, our favorite MCU movies too. We'll mention a couple of those. And we'll even throw in some review of Doctor Strange since that just hit Disney Plus recently as well. So please tune in, leave us a review, give us some stars, and we look forward to you joining us in next time. We'll see you in the next one. Thank you for joining Chris and I at the Inside All Day podcast. We look forward to you listening in on our future episodes. Please give us a like, leave us a review, and throw a coin to your Witcher. And follow us on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Discord, and Instagram at the Inside All Day podcast.